This is an Anzac biscuit. It is a chewy, tough, big biscuit that's made mostly of flour, sugar, rolled oats, and golden syrup. There's also some baking soda in there, 2 tablespoons of boiling water, some butter, and desiccated coconut as well. This biscuit was named the Anzac biscuit because all of those ingredients gave it a very long shelf life, so it was a perfect candidate to send on long boat trips back during World War One when the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, otherwise abbreviated as the Anzacs, were off fighting in Gallipoli and Turkey in World War One. So family members would make these biscuits and send them off to brothers, husbands, fathers, sons, even weird second cousins who were fighting in the trenches at Gallipoli, taking the beaches, doing all that stuff. You've seen the movies, you know what they were doing. So the Anzac forces landed in Gallipoli on the 25th of April in 1915. I feel like I should research this before I sat down. And to commemorate their efforts, as well as the efforts of countless soldiers lost in World War II, the Vietnam War, which I learned recently in Vietnam is called the America War. Let that sink in. As well as countless skirmishes and battles in the Middle East, and the placeholder for World War III as well. On the 25th of April every year, Australia and New Zealand have a day of remembrance, celebration, and honouring, of people who have laid down their lives for the freedom that we enjoy in this country. It also happens to be the day this video is coming out. What I was inspired to do, because I've been distilling a little while, and I've been learning how to do grain mashes, and I love Anzac biscuits. I've been thinking about the ingredients that go into a biscuit. They're not too dissimilar to the ingredients that are used during a distillation. I'm getting crumbs everywhere. If my wife sees this, I'm sorry. I'm not vacuuming. I think it's another one. So what are those ingredients, and how would they work in a whiskey mash? Well, first of all, you've got flour, which comes from wheat. So we can use some malted wheat, maybe 4 kgs of that. And then you've got rolled oats. So what if I got some malted oats and use those as well? Let's say 3 kgs for a 20-litre wash. It's not quite enough sugar to bring the ABV all the way up, but we're forgetting that when you make a batch of these biscuits, you put in 2 tablespoons of golden syrup, which is pure fructose sugar. So let's dump a kg tub of golden syrup in the wash as well. With all that, we now have the ingredients to make a mash. So we just need to bring that up to around 65 degrees Celsius, was my strike temperature, and just let that kind of simmer at that heat for about an hour so that the enzymes can turn all of the starches that we have in those malts into sugars. And then with a little bit of whiskey yeast and a little bit of time, we can let that sit, ferment, and make some alcohol. Two weeks after that process, or thereabouts, I had to strain this a few times to get some of the grains out. I fermented everything on the grain. I thought I'd have a better opportunity to do that, and then I kind of squeezed everything out. I washed through with some water to try and get as much liquid out of the grain after the fact, because I think it's just easier than doing it all when it's hot. I ended up with maybe around 10% alcohol in my wash, in 20 litres, or probably just under 20 litres of it after I got rid of all the sediment. We chucked that into the still and we did a stripping run. One issue that can affect the stripping run is that you can get a lot of overflow. You've got a grain wash, there could be a lot of foaming and puking, which is where the foam goes up the column and comes out and it gets into your distillate, and it's just not what you want. So a way to stop that is you can get all sorts of chemicals to break the surface tension of the water. Oil is a really good way of doing that, and an oil that I had on hand was butter, which is another ingredient from the biscuit recipe. So you're seeing I'm able to pull this back in and use that to some effect to help control this and bring some buttery flavors through maybe. So the column was empty of any saddles or anything. I didn't have the reflux hoses hooked up. I just ran it like a pot still, really fast, really hot, and I captured about 5 litres of alcohol at around about 50%. I can't remember, this is all a while ago now. Once we'd done that, it was then time to do a spirit. So I ran it back through the still again, this time at a slightly lower temperature. Same setup, no reflux, just like a pot still. And this time I took away the heads. I threw out the 4 shots, so we'd gotten rid of any bad stuff in there. And now it was just the good stuff, right? But we needed to get the flavour right. It was kind of a practice run because I was going to do one more distillation to make it triple distilled. And I was also going to do something that you guys probably aren't going to like in just a little bit. So I took some cuts, measured them out, and kind of got an idea for where the flavours were that I wanted, as well as the things that I'd be casting aside. So we're at the point of getting to the 3rd distillation, and you might be noticing, if you've been keeping track of everything, that there's one ingredient I haven't actually used from that list of the bill I gave you at the beginning of what makes a biscuit. And that is, you guys are going to hate this. I've told this to so many people, and I get to this point and they go, what? No, don't do that. But it's coconut. Oh man, I know people are going to hate this. Some people aren't big on coconut. I used to hate it. I drank some of my dad's homemade Malibu once and nearly died. And couldn't do coconut for like 10 years. But we're putting coconut in it. It's not going to be overpowering. It's going to be a slight hint. It's going to complement. So the way we're going to do this is, for the final run, I'm going to put a handful of coconut into the boiler itself, just to kind of macerate and have those flavours come out. And then I'm also going to put a handful into a gin basket and put it in the vapor trail as well, so it'll carry through some of those flavours as it goes up and out. And then we'll be tasting the cuts to see where that flavour comes out and where we want to use it, as well as where it doesn't come through as well, and then mixing them together to make a final product. By this point in the process, I was getting really good at making the cuts. I'd already done a practice run when I did the 2nd distillation, or the 1st spirit run. So this time it was quite easy. It was kind of like, I knew where to make the cuts. I knew how much volume to look for. Taste wise, it was all fine. Tastes like whiskey. But we finally got to the point that we could mix up and make our final spirit that was going to go into a jar with some oak staves. And so I didn't want to make it, I don't want to proof it down too much and make it too low, because with whiskey, once you go below 46%, you tend to get a haze that comes through. It just gets hazy. And I don't know why. I've just read that that's what it does, and there's a way of getting rid of it, which is called chill filtering, which just strips out some of the flavours. So what do? Do you stick with the flavour, with a hazy product? Do you make the alcohol level a little bit higher, which isn't traditional, or do you do the chill filtering? Or do you just keep the haze in there? And I chose to do the middle one, which is to go with a higher ABV, which isn't traditional, but this is a new tradition. This is an Anzac whiskey. So I made it about 46%. I got 3.5 litres, I think. I can't remember, and I haven't put a label on the jug. And then I chucked in some oak staves from a wine barrel that I've had sitting in my garage. I charred a couple of them up, and it was time to let it just mature. So that was in January. It's now the end of March, so it's only been 2 months. This is kind of a little bit of an early point in time for me to taste test it, but I'm really lazy. I don't think I'll get this video edited in time for Anzac Day if I don't do this now. So I'm going to get it out of the way, and then I'm actually going to put it back in the roof for another year. So it's been sitting in the roof because the rafters up above there in the ceiling, it gets up to like 40 to 50 degrees Celsius sometimes. I had the end of summer, the tail end of summer, that caught it, and it has helped that chemical process of making the wood more soluble and getting the flavour out. So I'm probably going to take a couple of staves out, leave 1 or 2 in there, and after this taste test, I'll put it back up there for a year, and I'll see how that goes. So Anzac Day 2024, baby, we're gonna have some bottles of whiskey. The last thing I've done right before this taste testing is I've added about a tablespoon per litre of golden syrup back into it, just to back sweeten it a little bit. Just because the flavour of golden syrup is so, it's like burnt sugar. It's so caramelly and yum and kind of like treacle if you've never tried it. And I wanted that to come through a little bit on the back end of this because being 46%, it is a little bit, there's a little bit up there with the harshness. And it hasn't mellowed out yet, so I might have made a big mistake in doing that. But we'll see in a year. I'm going to taste it right now, so I'll go do that. So it's got a good colour to it. When I saw it in the jar after being up in the roof for like 2 months, it's like, oh my god, it's gone black. But it's actually, once you get it in the glass, it's got a nice golden, like a deep golden colour, very similar to golden syrup. So that's the first thing I think of when I see it. What I'm getting through there is only the faintest hint of coconut, like it kind of does give me a Malibu flashback, but there's oak and vanilla, and then there's the flavour of the golden syrup coming through as well, which smells great. Actually, I've got some other whiskies up there that are still really young that just they taste like bottom shelf liquor. This smells good. Oh yeah, there's definitely not that smoothness yet. You know, there's just the heat, but aftertaste I do get some hints of sort of the caramel, the burnt sugar flavour from the golden syrup that's just been added, so we'll see how that goes over time. Not getting the coconut on the palate so much as on the nose. Not getting any coconut at all on the tongue. Maybe it's there. I've just eaten some biscuits, so maybe I've confused my palate, pairing them together. The oat flavour. So maybe using malted oats wasn't the way to go. Maybe I should have used some rolled oats instead, just for flavour and smoothness. It wouldn't have added any sugar, but I could have maybe added just regular table sugar, which is, again, the main ingredient in this that I missed in this. It's not a bad drop. Like I said, give it a time. Give it some time. Give it a year. We'll see how it goes. Crumbs in the glass. It'll be interesting to see how it smooths out. I'd love to know what you think about this experiment. It's been fun to do. If you have any suggestions on improving the recipe, I'd love to try doing this again. Maybe capture the results as well, or hear about whether or not I'm the first to do this. I'm sure people have done it before. I've never seen anybody so far brewing with golden syrup as a sugar, which I think is a shame because it takes off. That thing went nuts after I added the syrup. But that's all for now. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I've got a couple of other New Zealand-based brews that I want to do. I'm just waiting for molasses to come back into stock. So keep an eye out if you're interested in this genre. I hate doing this, but click subscribe and you can stay up to date when this stuff comes out. Thank you so much. See you guys in the next video. I'm gonna enjoy the rest of this little drop here. I love everything. Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright.